Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. I am your host, Patty Rose. My guest today is known in the University of Oregon classrooms as a professor of journalism and cinema studies, known in the streets as DJ Food Stamp. We are joined by André Sirois.
Woo.
Sirois.
Yeah, I'm saying woo because you got my name right.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I did some research, some Google searching. I did my own research.
Oh, yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. Actually, I had someone else do it for me. But before we start, I'd like to remind my listeners and watchers to check out the Spent the Rent podcast official website at STRPOD.com. There you can see a list of our local 541 community sponsors and become a donor for as low as $5 a month. And I would greatly appreciate the support. Also, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. All of the links can be found on the website at strpod.com. Andre, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Ooh, we already have a comment from the real Dr. Dre and Patty. Thomas Yoda. Shout out to Thomas.
What up, man?
So yeah, we've been corresponding the last couple years, mostly over Celtics games.
Yeah.
You're originally from Maine?
I'm a Mainer. Yeah.
A Mainer.
Yes, sir.
So we've crossed paths through mutual friends through hip hop. I work on campus. You work at the university, the Boston Celtics. But in these last couple of years, especially with this finals run, I feel like we've became brothers, like internet brothers.
Of course,
it's kind of funny. So
I mean, I don't have a lot of like people out here that love the Celtics. So I mean, I'll take whatever I can get. You know, I'll take anything. You know?
Right. And I haven't seen a human being in person. Yeah, no, since 2019. No, but I just am a big fan of what you do. I think you're a super funny guy, and I've been trying to find the right time to get you on the podcast. And since this is 2 weeks before classes start back up, I felt like this would be a good time. So let's get right into talking about why I have you on. The first thing I want to talk about is really funny. I looked it up, and the first thing I found about you was Rate My Professor, which everyone on the internet has a score. And yours is, I mean, I understand as a barbershop, it's really important. That maybe not for a college professor, but for a barbershop, it actually is the number one marketing thing. But your Rate My Professor score is a 4.5.
It's low.
Has it gone down? And you've received super high praise from your students, and from everything I've read, you're beloved by your students and you're passionate about teaching them. So tell me what your class looks like.
Yeah. Rate My Professor. What a joy. It's kind of like the MySpace of reviewing faculty. But it's, I saw on there, I actually went on there. I've been teaching for a hell of a long time, and just had, within the last few years, a Rate My Professor page made, you know what I'm saying? Because a student has to initiate that, so it was just kind of funny to see that. I don't have many tamales though.
Yeah, the beauty of Rate My Professor though is you get to like see inside the soul of a frat boy. So they'll be like, yo, Andre's goated.
Yeah, goated. Yeah,
he's goated.
Very goated.
He's goated. And Andre's class was dope. He's a dope guy. So that's good to know.
So ridiculous.
So your focus is on journalism and cinema studies. But it's not just about watching movies. It's about much, much more. Could you tell me what you thrive to educate your students on in the world of cinema?
Yeah. So, I teach cinema and music now. I moved on from the journalism school. And I was really, really fortunate to land in cinema studies when we were a little program. We had 35 students, right? I just got my PhD, and they just started. And the dopest part was I got to get in there and basically create my own identity and create all my own classes. So I spent the first few years inventing like 8 classes from the ground up. You know what I'm saying? So I got to think of all the things that I had, that proficiencies that I had, knowledge that I had that I thought like young people would need and would be valuable. So I was like, well, I've been researching and writing and talking about intellectual property law for a long time. I'm like, students have no fucking clue about this shit. And every day they are creating and infringing on intellectual property rights, right? And they have no concept of it. And they're creatives, and they have social media now, and they're always making stuff. So I'm like, yo, maybe I can teach a class on remixing and intellectual property law, and cinema studies went for it. And, I was like, yo, I'm like, I love music video. I have a pretty decent background in music video production. I'm like, what about a music video production class? Boom. I'm like, yo, I watch a lot of South Park.
I can't believe this.
I'm like, yo, what if we use South Park to talk about, philosophy and critical and cultural theory and shit like, race and sexuality and, politics and all that stuff. And they went for it. It was dope because they were new. So I was like the first faculty member, taught the first class for them and all that shit. And we went from 35 students to, roughly 350, and we keep growing, and went from like one faculty to 15 or 20. So I got in at the ground floor and got to kind of create my own space and identity, which never fucking happens. When you come out of a PhD, you apply for a job, you get that job, you usually go to some shithole in the middle of nowhere, America, and you teach what they want you to teach. They hand you a syllabus and you teach what you want to teach. And instead I got to basically create what I wanted to teach. And, it's been 11 years at Cinema Studies. I also teach for the School of Music. I teach a hip hop history and culture and, aesthetics class over there. And it's been 11 years. And, the reality is, that shit is valuable. Like, these things are valuable. And, for me with teaching, it's not like so much like, let me tell you stuff and let me tell you esoteric stuff that I know. It's more for me, as I always looked at teaching as like the performance of knowledge,
Sure.
And so it's an act, it's almost like a stand-up routine.
Yeah.
So after COVID, after 2 years of people press and play on me, this year I got back into my stand-up routine. That shit was like, I had to get all my jokes back and all my things back and all my, my song and dance back, so, but it's been so cool, to be able to, do my own thing. And the dopest part about being a faculty member, even when you're like me, I'm an instructor, so I'm not a full professor. I don't, get all like the perks and all that shit. But like, it's just such a cool thing because I have so much autonomy, so much freedom. Like, no one knows what the fuck I'm doing. Like, the students know, but like no one else really knows. You know what I'm saying? So I could show up and like, like tell dick jokes and juggle and ride a unicycle for 10 fucking weeks. And unless a student complained, no one would know, so you have a lot of freedom.
Right.
And that's a beautiful
I mean,
thing.
I'm sure that there's, like I said about you've been goated, so I'm sure that there's along the way, the style that you have will upset someone.
Oh yeah.
But that being said, I think a lot of people are so happy to have something that's a little bit off the cuff. And I wonder if the reason that they gave you that freedom was because the people that are just making those decisions have no concept of hip hop and young, youth culture. So you are working to meet people where they're at. And that is like, they're like, run with it. And I think that the vision that the people that made that decision, which I have no concept of who it is, but still, I think that's really good that they kind of let you go for it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And, and someday I'll just be the old crotchety person. If I'm in Eugene long enough, I know I'm going to have like Birkenstocks and a little magic leather pouch and a fucking white ponytail and a walking stick and go to class and teach like that. I'm worried about being here too long.
Back in the day, you could buy those at Antrican, which is across the street from what's now 7-Eleven.
The magic pouches?
Yeah. And the ponytail. You could buy those. Everything smelled like Nog Champa.
I got a funny little story. Speaking of the goated and frat douchery. One of the greatest reviews I ever got from a student, was a female student, was like, when I took this class, the first day of class, I thought this was a douche frat boy reliving his youth fantasy. And then I realized throughout the term that this is one of the, like, she totally went on to like love what I did and everything, but she thought like my introductory thing was just so like douchey and I was going to be such like a, a misogynist, blah, 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 blah. She's like, this is fucking amazing.
I mean, that's the goal of college, is to kind of break down some of your assumptions about the way the world works, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's a big part of it. I'm sure that there'd be a lot of people that just wouldn't understand, but the kids themselves benefit from these classes. I want to talk deeply about the South Park and Society class. I think my listeners are a wide range of age and demographic and whatnot. And and there's people that probably have never seen South Park and just assume that it's Family Guy, which Family Guy I've never been a fan of. I mean, I'll laugh. I'll laugh at Family Guy, but I will feel bad about it because there's no intelligence. Well, no, it's a clever show. It's just really bigoted.
It's just a bunch of random jokes. I mean, the South Park creators fucking hate Family Guy because there's no, like, South Park always has like they have like gone with a theme throughout a whole fucking season. Like there's a whole narrative arc throughout a whole season. Family Guy can't keep a narrative arc for more than a minute. Right. And then they go into some random ass joke, you know? So I
mean, South Park did a whole episode about it, but I do think that South Park has really made, over their 25 years or whatever it is, they have really made some extremely good social commentary,
and bad
and heinous and crass. And, you know, I mean, it's Trey Parker's a genius when it comes to the music, but it's also why it's so good is because it's so terrible, you know. But reading up on that course that you offer. So some of the homework is that you need to go home and watch like Team America, right? And
clips from it. Yeah. I mean, homework is literally watching several South Park episodes a week. That's like part of your home stuff. And then we watch shit in class too. And we kind of fuse it all together and talk about it topically. You know,
how many people have never seen the show that take the class?
I would say, any of the Chinese students I get have not seen the show because it's banned in China. You know that, right?
Yeah.
South Park's banned in China. Y'all know that.
So
right?
Is TikTok, right?
I don't know if TikTok's banned there now. I mean, it started there, right? And then it was banned here, and then, or was going to be banned here, and then whatever. But anyway. I would say probably, I would say probably about roughly 5% have never watched an episode before. And then there's probably about 10 to 15% who've maybe seen a couple episodes. And then I usually get a good amount of students whose parents wouldn't let them watch that shit.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like they wouldn't let them watch that shit. Although they can just go onto the internet and go to Pornhub and like, you know, but you can't watch South Park on, you know, whatever. So, I mean, it's just like, yeah, but I love those students. Those are like my favorite, like the super fans, you know, that whatever.
Right.
You know, but it's real cool to get a South Park virgin, you know, and like, it's cause it's like, yo, you're going to get like, if you've never seen this, you don't really know what it's about, you're going to get fucked up. Like it's going to make your head blow up in some way. Right. Like, cause I mean, like, I remember when I first saw it, I was 17 and I was just like, you know, what the hell is this? And also like, there's no way a show about asses, shit, and dicks is gonna last.
Oh yeah,
you know,
on Comedy Central.
No way. And they went from just being about that and then figuring out how to use that. You know, there's a nice term we use in the class called scatological humor, which is, you know, shit jokes, you know, essentially. But it's a way for me to like make it seem academic, so students can tell their parents, you know, they're not just burning their money. You know, but you know, they took that scatology or scatological humor and then they applied it to things like cherished traditions that we have, cherished institutions, political institutions. They applied it to, you know, common ways of thinking, ideologies, etc., celebrities, you know, all these things, and essentially equated them in some way to shit or puke or semen or something like that. You know, which brings the whole concept is it kind of brings, you know, these people we revere, athletes, celebrities, you know, whatever institutions we revere, brings them down to the level of the common, you know, like the common people, you know, and that's kind of like the dopest part of the show. And it helps you see the flaws in them. If you love the Kardashians and you watch the new Kardashian show on Hulu or whatever, you don't see that. You don't see them for what they really are, you know? So South Park tries to like, you know, I love the Snooki when they do. What the fuck is it? What the hell is a Snooki? You know, it's like one of my favorites. It's like, yeah, what is a Snooki? You know?
Yeah. I mean, so are you aware if there's other people teaching South Park courses?
There definitely are. And everybody, I think, has their own unique approach, and it's taught within, you know, different types of departments. A lot of them are philosophy departments or media studies departments. And cinema studies is kind of really in between. Like we really focus on like cinema studies. And then also part of our curriculum is on filmmaking, production, sound design. I teach a sound design class for films. So we do like footsteps and Foley and ADR and stuff, which is super, super, super dope. You know, but, you know, I think, you know, just South Park is just a great tool to kind of like get you to think about the world. And, I mean, you gotta think, man, like I do a whole week on political correctness, and at a liberal institution with mostly liberal faculty, like, and liberal students who believe in PC. And I believe in elements of PC, like, using language to create equity is important. But when you call someone out for their microaggressions so that you can post about it for your own sort of cultural currency and capital, it's bullshit. It's like, it's like, oh, I did something nice for someone today, let me post about it. Like, the fuck that. Like, you do something nice. So it allows us to talk and really talk, because there's a lot of discussion with me and the students once we get through some of the concepts and stuff about these things. Because like they go to this institution where PC political correctness is really like pushed and advocated and all this, and that's great. But like, we also find out like the way that we go about being politically correct by forcing language on others, and by like, I always use the example of like your fucking uncle who won't use them or whatever, your salty, kind of bigoted uncle, whatever. And if you come at him and you're like, you're this and that, and you're just going to alienate him more and push him more to the end of the table at Thanksgiving, versus like having a discussion.
Or like I was saying before about, meet them at their level.
Yeah,
like,
meet
right?
them at their level, man.
Yeah, you have to find a way, like, to explain things so that someone can actually comprehend it, so that they don't feel attacked.
The attack is the worst. And that's where we're at now in society, is we just go at people who don't think like us. And then when we're met with that, then it's the easiest thing in the world is we just censor, block,
well,
unfriend,
and the only reason that I know that is because I've made those mistakes. Like, I've tried to reach out, I've tried to change the world and it hasn't worked, because I've approached it like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of like, let me learn. And, next week I'm going to be talking to a woman that's running for state representative in a rural community. So that's going to be something we're going to really dive deep into.
Yeah. Awesome.
Let's talk about, you mentioned it before, but remix cultures. This is a really, really important class for what you do. It's probably the primary focus of what you do. And the course book is the Hip Hop DJs and Evolution?
No, that's just a book. That's my dissertation that I turned into a manuscript. I'm not one of those faculty members that writes a book so my students can buy it. You know what I mean?
Your book is available on Amazon, and I think we're gonna end up talking about it when we talk about remix cultures. The book is called Hip Hop DJs: An Evolution of Technology, and then the subtitle is Cultural Exchange, Innovation, and Democratization. Tell me about the book and tell me about the class.
Yeah, so I'll start with the book. The basic concept of the book. You can also download a free Creative Commons ebook.
And it's cheap to buy. I'm gonna probably end up buying it so that it can sit on the shelf. I might not read it.
Yeah, you don't need to read it. I can just summarize.
I do like to
collect
memorabilia for my guests.
So it's basically I interviewed all of like my favorite hip hop DJs, turntablists, and then I interviewed all these people that that produce equipment for DJs, Rain, Vestex, all these, iconic companies that produce equipment that DJs rely on. And my whole sort of what came from it is I actually went to this company called Rain, and they were in Mukilteo, Washington, right? And I went up there. It's right near Seattle. I went up there right when I started my whole thing, and I had a whole different idea, right? I was like, how does digital technology affect what DJs do? And Rain partnered with a company that makes Serato, which is like one of the first really core digital vinyl softwares. Anyways, I go up there and they're telling me all about how they do R&D, research and development, with like name brand DJs, like innovators in the culture of technique and all that stuff. And then how they use their names and their likenesses to be brand ambassadors and sell those products to authenticate them within the culture. And I was like, holy shit, fuck. I'm like, what does this look like, historically? Like, how many of the products that I love and I bought because I saw, the Invisible Scratch Pickles or Q-Bird or Mixmaster Mike or DJ Craze like endorsing or having their name on it. And then who also gave them ideas? Because a lot of what I kind of found out was that a lot of the DJs who they put on the box and on the, the name on there, they weren't necessarily even designing, like they weren't giving design ideas. So the whole idea, really, the concept goes back to how have these corporations that produce technology for DJs since like the 70s, how do they, the whole narrative is, hip hop steals and borrows and borrows from corporations, and they're taking. I was like, well, how do corporations take from the culture? How do they take their intellectual properties and commodify them and then sell them back to the culture? And I found that throughout, the history of DJ mixers from the late 60s, early 70s on was basically DJ's technique, advancements in technique were encoded into technologies by engineers who had no fucking clue about the culture. And eventually what they did in the 80s is they brought in DJs to give them actual ideas. And then the products improved because I want to do this and that. And then they started using those DJs to be not those DJs, but the name brand, well-recognized DJs to be brand ambassadors for those products. So the book kind of looks at that process, which I coined technocultural synergism. You always, as an academic, and by the way, I'm a recovering academic. I don't fucking do that shit anymore. I don't do conferences. I don't write journal articles. I don't do that shit no more. Because I felt like it was intellectual masturbation. No one reads your shit. And when I wrote the book from my dissertation, my main point was to write it so that the people who I wanted to read it most would read it, not intellectual academic types, but DJs would read it as well. And so I wrote it in a way of a style that was readable. You don't need a fucking terminal degree to read it. You know what I mean? So, and I got hated on by the reviewers of the book at the publisher and all that because of my mixed voice approach. And I was like, I don't want this to just fucking sit in a library.
Mixed voice meaning you talk like a human?
I talk like a human and like a nerd, a human nerd, and try to make like that shit the information accessible, because so much of what academics do is fucking important, but it's inaccessible to people because they can't fucking read it and they're bored after page one.
See, that's something I can relate to, because that's what I've tried to do with what I do. I'm not an educated human being. I skipped classes in high school.
Very nice.
But that being said, I've learned, and I've had a lot of guests that have given me a chance with this. And that's something that I've really valued, because when you get too into the weeds, you lose the average person, right?
Gone.
And so if you can do something that they can relate to, then they'll hang on to your every word and then be educated by it. So that's something that's really good.
I tried to like I said, there's a free ebook, version. And that was my thing, is most of the market for academic books is libraries.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's bullshit. So someone has to like be at a university to go to college library to even access the text. I'm like, I want an ebook. And so I went to like a lesser known publisher with worse royalties and all, everything, till I found someone who would let me do his ebook. Cause you're not making shit for money. I think I've gotten $42 in royalty. You know what I'm saying?
That's pretty good from Amazon. That's more than from Spotify.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. Yeah. It's a SoundCloud rapper.
I mean, but there's a whole thing about getting the word out that it even exists, and so
it was dope, dude, because like it was like, as a hip hop DJ, turntablist, whatever, I knew I'm not going to ever like win major battles. I'm never going to be like, give to the culture that I love like that. This is my contribution. And it was dope, man, because I got the book to Mixmaster Mike. He fucking loved it. DJ Jazzy Jeff, he loved it. Like all like D Styles loved, like all these like influential, people loved it, and they loved it as a contribution, because no one was writing about it. I write about this dude, DJ Focus, who's like, he invented the first contactless fader, and he's like this dude, bedroom inventor from Arizona, and was revolutionized the industry, because before your fader would wear out, you have to buy an expensive fader. Before that, you'd have to buy a whole new mixer. And he made this thing, and I have one of his 4 prototypes. He gave me one of his 4 prototypes, that he totally just like came up with this idea of like a light sensor to, go with your clicks. If any DJs out there know what I'm talking about. And he's kind of been like written out of the history. So I got this dude to come out of like a cave, and he hated on the industry because he got hired by the company that made his technology, and they botched it. And he worked there for a few years, and then he got kind of like blacklisted, like pushed out of the industry, and he didn't talk about his shit. And so I got him to, after years of me poking at him, got him to come out and tell his story and like codify it in the book. And so I love that. Like you can read about him, and stuff like that. And so it was kind of really dope to do. And to put that out there and just, create and contribute to the culture in a sort of different way. But I don't require my students in my class in my remix cultures class to buy the book.
And that's why it's only made $42 in revenue, because people have bestsellers and it's because they force people to buy it.
Yeah.
Which is a criminal thing.
I had a ticker on the how many downloads I got, and it was in the thousands at one point, because people were sharing it. Like, I had people hit me up from Russia who got their hands on it, which is dope, because they're not gonna get that fucking from Amazon, so like the turntablists in Russia could get that shit. But my philosophy, with all that stuff, and even in the remix cultures and all my classes, all my content is free online. So like, students don't have to buy a textbook ever. I only use Creative Commons licensed books and stuff for them. My book is also licensed as Creative Commons, which means it's copyright. It has copyright, but you can do certain things with it that you can't do with an all rights reserved book. So I think, like, knowledge scarcity, artificial scarcity of knowledge, which the whole, college and university system relies on, making something that's vastly available, knowledge and information, making it scarce by charging a fuck ton of money for people to have access to it, right? I think that's bullshit, and I mean, I get my income from that, but I also do think it's bullshit. So I want students to pay the least amount of money as possible. I also really try to get students to not fail classes. Yeah. Because students who fail classes are economically viable for the institution, because then they have to retake classes. Like, you have to really fuck up and not do anything to fail one of my. You have to like really fuck up, like not do anything. I'm so soft, like I'm so soft on all that stuff, because we all know grades don't mean shit after you graduate. They don't mean a goddamn thing. No one's ever going to look at your GPA ever fucking again in your life after that. Like, it doesn't matter, and it matters so much to students, because they're pushed that grades matter, numbers matter, all this their whole lives, and it's and so I don't really vibe on that. So point is like, I don't like to see students fail. But if they don't do the work, they're not gonna.
Yeah, if you don't do the work, and you're not, I mean, obviously.
But the universities want that. Like, they want that, because then students have to pay to take a class again or another class. So it creates, someone who's having to buy the same product multiple times. Yeah.
Like we do with Madden and 2K.
Yeah. Well, like you do. I don't play no fucking video games.
Yeah. So when did the whole DJ thing start? I mean, DJ Food Stamp, first of all, how did that I hate this question, but like, where did the name come from?
Sure.
It's pretty obvious. But
yeah. Well, I view myself as like a DJ before I was an actual DJ. So when I was 19, I got into hip hop as a b-boy with the great break exploitation era of the early 80s, where like break dancing was like the element of hip hop that was everywhere, because it was spectacle and it was like visually awesome, and kids were break dancing at the fucking, at the fucking malls in Iowa and shit. And like, I was like, and so I got into it like that. And I started doing like tape loops and stuff like that when I was real young, like 6 or 7, and found out I could plug my headphones into a mic jack, and you could record your own voice. So I started just fucking around like that. And always loved hip hop since like the early mid 80s, like real young. My neighbors were into it, and they got me hooked on like Run DMC and Fat Boys and shit. And I always wanted to DJ, right? Like I would see Eric B and Rakim, and Eric B's faking scratching on like Yo MTV Raps, but I was like, yo, that's so fucking cool. And I tried shit like on like my little Fisher Price on my parents, turntable, never really worked out. And I'd fantasize in the back of the Source magazine at like the DJ in a box, but growing up in Maine, in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't like you had someone down the block who was a DJ, because there wasn't a block, it was a fucking woods, So I mean, like, and there wasn't shit like Guitar Center where you could go and put your hands on stuff, on equipment, so there wasn't access. And that's one of my things, is like all about access, giving people access to the stuff, the democratization. So anyways, I go to college in New Britain, hard-hitting New Britain, Connecticut. I go for like D1, like running scholarship, and then I get taken out after my first year. I get some accidents and stuff, and I'm like, oh, it's fucking free time on my hands. I'm like, been a competitive runner for a long time, distance athlete and biking and all that. I was like, yo, I'm gonna go to the radio station. I'm gonna get a radio. I'm gonna get a radio thing at the radio station. And I go in there, and they got fucking turntable set up and a mixer. I'm like, and they had like, we're in like, this is right outside Hartford, so there was like dope DJs too. And I get in there, and they're like, what are you gonna play? And I had all these tapes, and they're like, well, you got to play clean versions. I'm like, oh, fuck. And, they're like, we have these small stacks. And so I just was like, fucking A, man. I start buying records, and, that was kind of it, just to get the clean versions. And I started DJing, and they'd shut my first shows before I had my setup was at 12 to 2 in the morning, and then they'd shut off the transmitter till 6 in the morning. You know what I mean? So I would stay there till 6 in the morning when everything shut off, and I'd practice all night long, you know, with my records. I went through mad names: DJ Scratch and Sniff, Edward Needlehands. I think Dr. Bombay was like my earliest radio name, right? Just some bullshit. And then I fucking, you know, I'm a junior in college. I'm spending all my dough, all my work study money, everything I can on records, right? And we're talking like hip hop records that were coming out, underground shit, MF Doom shit, fucking, you know, We Be Foolish. I'm just thinking of some names like off the top of my head, MF Grimm, you know, whatever was kind of coming out, Big L, all that, you know, all that stuff. And I was like, yo, if you're a federal work study worker, you can apply for food stamps. Like anybody who's federal work study can apply for food stamps. I hire students for work study, and you know, they're always asking me to sign off so they can get food stamps. I was like, yo, I'm gonna apply for food stamps. And I fucking applied, and they denied me. I was like, what the fuck, dude? But I was like, yo, that would kind of be like a dope, stupid name,
right?
DJ Food Stamp, because at the time, we're talking late 90s, everybody was like, DJ Image.
That's
you know?
rad.
You know, it was all about like how dope you were and how much skills you'd have, and you know, like a cool fucking name. And I was like, yo, I'm gonna pick the dumbest shit that no one will fucking ever forget. Like no one will forget it because it's so stupid.
And you don't have to worry about someone else having it.
Dude,
you know?
When I first moved to Oregon, and this is like the problem was I built up my name through this website, undergroundhiphop.com, which was like the global leader in like selling records and like underground hip hop stuff, you know, for a long time. And they distributed my shit on mixtapes. So I put out like 60 mixtapes that like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of those collectively went out all over the world. So then I built up my name as DJ Food Stamp, and you can't go back. Like I probably would have gone with like a different name, but you can't go back. You build it up and you're like, shit, I can't go back. When I first moved to Oregon in 2006, there was a DJ Food Stamp in Portland that just came out as DJ Food Stamp and had a few different names. And this is against like what I believe, you know, in so many ways with like ownership.
You killed him, didn't you?
I hit him up on MySpace, and I was like, yo, man, I'm like, yo, do a Google search before you give yourself a DJ name. You know what I'm saying? Because that's like the least thing you could do is like do a fucking Google search, you know, like.
And you killed him.
And I didn't kill him. I said go back to, I think his name was DJ Fanny Pack. That was like his other alias. I was like, go back to Fanny Pack. Which is pretty
good.
I'm like, that's a good name. I'm like, DJ Food Stamp is also a good name, but like.
I went to high school with a kid that was into graffiti, and he wrote Ludacris, and I was like, you can't do that like that. And he's like, I've been doing it longer. And I'm like, he's won a Grammy.
Yeah.
It's like, seriously.
I mean, you could do like Luda 189 or whatever your street number is or something like that. But
no, but and his name is and is it Christopher Bridges is Ludacris or something like that? This dude's in it. Shout out, he's gonna hate me, but his name was Elliot, the kid I went to high school with. So I'm like, dude, you can't use Ludacris. And he's like, so you didn't get to.
Well, I mean, dude, A$AP Rocky and
A$AP Rocky.
Yeah. You don't know like A$AP, you know, it's just like all these.
But A$AP Rock stole it from the Fables, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm joking.
I mean, we're talking about product markets, right?
I know,
like, you know, it's just kind of funny, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, and you know, it's definitely been, like you said, when you lock in with a name, it's really difficult to change.
You're done.
Yeah.
If you make some noise. You know, I made a little bit of enough noise to like,
or if you're proud of the work that you've done. I mean, I've made a lot of music, and it hasn't done a ton, but I used to go by the name Self-Esteem But Willie. Even when I started the podcast, I was going by Self-Esteem But Willie, and I got to a point where I'm like, people can't remember it. You know, for one,
it's a long name.
It's too long.
It's catchy,
and I don't want anyone to call me Willie.
Yeah,
you know, and so and my mom passed, and I was thinking that's when the Patty Rose thing kind of came to me, because my mom's last name was Rose, and like you said, I Googled it and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that nobody in art and entertainment had the name Patty Rose, and I'm like, I'm gonna run with it. Spent the Rent was my record label, which is my living room, and I mean, but still, everything I do now, I mean, it's Spent the Rent LLC. That's my whole brand, and there's no going back from it now. I initially started in wanting to write punk rock lyrics. And I was like, Spent the Rent would be such a sick punk band, but I didn't have the patience to learn how to play instruments. So I was like, I could make some little hip hop beats. And then I'm like, I want to make hip hop music, but I want it to sound like punk music.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, I found my own little niche, and that was kind of cool. And I mean, but when you have when you have your music, even if you're an amateur, next to Red Hot Chili Peppers on your Spotify playlist, that shit makes you feel pretty good.
Yeah, fuck
you
yeah,
know.
it
So
does.
even though I pay them to have my music online,
Yeah.
I do get like $6 or $7 a year.
There you go,
in
man.
royalties.
Yeah, that's that big bucks.
So we could take your 42 and my 6 or 7, and we can go buy like a family of 4 or some McDonald's.
One of the fun unknown facts, speaking of royalties, is one of the most I would say economically viable known tracks I ever was. One of the few things I actually am like, I've done scratches for a bunch of artists for hooks. My man Blackistan being one of them, who passed last year, who's in the Demigods. But this dude from my hometown named Spose, what up, Spose? You know, rapper, real talented artist. I did a bunch of cuts on this song called "I'm Awesome." Came out in like 2009, and it was like something he put on a mixtape he made, and he was selling out back of his trunk. Well, it started to pick up traction on the local radios, and then it fucking blew up. He got signed to Universal Republic, fucking went platinum and all this stuff, you know. I never saw a penny, which I wasn't mad about, but I never saw no credit on that record. When that happened, I said, when he got signed to Universal Republic, I'm like, I want to be on that record. Like, it needs to say scratch featuring DJ Food Stamp, scratches by DJ Food Stamp, like it would say featuring Ludacris, featuring Patty Rose.
Sometimes the DJ gets screwed on that.
Sometimes they never get their props because they're considered a session musician. They're not considered a featured artist. And I was really so here I am writing about DJs' intellectual properties being exploited, and DJs also don't get publishing rights.
Yeah.
And for me, the way I look at it is, you know, the way you pluck a guitar string, you pluck a guitar string and coax a sound out of it, and you focus that sound and that noise into music. I'm doing the same shit, but I'm just using a record or someone else's voice, right? And the way that I uniquely cut up the audible phrases, you know, create their like a unique music of authorship. So I went through and notated all that shit. Not Western notation. I used a scratch notation because I can't read. First of all, I can't read.
That's the whole sentence. I can't read.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I have dyslexia, so I can't actually properly read like you read, or
no, I don't.
Like how most people read. You know,
yeah.
So and I also can't read music like that. So I notated it because I was like, yo, I want to get some fucking I should get some publishing out of this. Like, not even because I wanted publishing, just because like DJs should notate their shit, so they should get publishing, but they don't because they're session musicians. But if they scratch a rapper's vocals, the rapper is considered a songwriter on that fucking song and gets pub. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, that's fucking bass backwards. But the funniest part was the last phrase on the song was Kanye West saying awesome. And I was cutting that up. And when he got signed to Universal Republic, and this is also me not being about my business, I should have said like, okay, he goes, listen, they want me to recut that part because I can't use fucking Kanye, because then Kanye will be a songwriter and we have to clear it and all this stuff.
Which is ironic, by the way.
Yeah.
Because he's the biggest thief.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, yeah, like DJs would cut up, like DJ Premier would cut up someone's vocals, and then rappers who also borrowed heavily and relied on borrowing would fucking sue him, you know, sue him for publishing or whatever. And so I had to recut the last phrase of it being cut up using Spose's voice, you know. And I should have said then, like, all right, well, let's be about my business, because I just didn't know it was going to go like this. Like, I didn't know he was going to get, you know, whatever. But dude blew up, and then he faded off like the mainstream thing because he didn't do what they wanted, and then he took all that money, took everything, and he started his own label in Maine and put on Maine Artists, which is fucking preposterously dank. Super fucking dope that he did that, and he's successful. He played in Eugene a few years ago, and I couldn't go see him for some reason, which is or Portland, maybe it was Portland, you know. And I couldn't go up, you know. But anyways, that's
cool. I mean, and I didn't really ask the question, but I was gonna say, you know, if the big thing that you talk about is intellectual property and that challenge, you know, and how to kind of define what that looks like for a DJ, you know. And I mean, the new programs make it a little bit easier to give credit where credit's due. Not everyone does it, you know. Like, you can list on Spotify, you can list every, you know, instrument, every person that has any type of credit on it. You know, one of the local musicians that I've talked to a lot on the podcast, Lee Jones, and I mean, he's a folk singer, but of Buffalo Romeo, he takes a lot of pride in making sure everyone gets credited, you know. And it could be a guy that plays a cymbal, You know what I'm saying? But he's gonna credit it, and I wish more people had that kind of mentality.
Well, I mean, that's how it works in the mainstream industry, right? Beyonce has 4,000 writers on
Which
her
is
album,
insane.
and it's literally a dude or in the studio who's taking a fucking weed nap, who wakes up and goes, "Yo, you shouldn't do it d d d d. You should do it dot da 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 da." Is a fucking songwriter on that song. Like, that person gets credit in that mainstream industry because it's like, yo, I just fucking dot da 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 Beyonce. I gotta fucking get paid, on this record. I wrote that melody or came up with that melody for the song, and it's what makes a song. But I think on the more independent level, that ain't the norm. Credit ain't it ain't the norm. And for me, I just wanted credit. For me, I wanted people to know that I was on Blackistan's record. And fucking dude, this is so crazy. The first record I did cuts for Black on was released by Brick Records, which is a label in Boston that put out like Acrobatic, Mr. Lift, stuff, and whatever local Boston, but big artists for the indie scene. And I was like, listen, and the guy who runs the label has an intellectual property entertainment law degree. And we've communicated a lot on various subjects. I was like, listen, man, I'm like, all I want on this from y'all is just credit. Make sure I get credit. The fucking album comes out, dude, and my name isn't on it. They credit several of the other DJs. I'm like, dude, like, out of all the fucking people, you can't give credit. Like I just went through all this with the SPO's record, and like, that's all I wanted here, bro, was credit.
They probably would have given you credit if your name was DJ Fanny Pack.
Yes, Fanny Pack would have gotten it, but the DJ Fruit Snack did not get it. But I mean, I think that's the thing, is I think, like, for me, like, a lot of the stuff that I do put out there, I do put out as Creative Commons licensed photos of DJ mixers, stuff. Yeah, because I want people to use them, and I'll allow for commercial uses, because my whole logic is this: who the fuck am I? No one really knows who I am, right? But if I allow Nike to use one of my songs for an advertisement, they have to give me credit. You know what I mean? That's worth way more to me than me getting a few $1,000s out of them and no credit, because I get credit on that. I get to add that to my resume.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So credit has its own currency in so many ways when you're doing something valuable, and so, so I think that there is value. I mean, money too, man. You want fucking... You want money, but money will come from that, right? Oh, you did that Nike commercial, you did that Nike spot, you did this or that. Like, we want you to do that, So I mean, things can come from that, getting
an
props.
Opportunity and whatnot. Absolutely. So you are still definitely in the game. I mean,
like, barely.
Sure, but you got something going on tonight, right? Like, you're going to be down at
Level Up, baby.
Level Up.
Yeah, 11 years. I think 11 years they've been open. I've been there since. I've been in that building. That where Level Up is on 13th and Oak, when it was the district, and when it was the fucking Indigo District. When they had the waterfall in there and everything. I started DJing when I first moved out here in like 2006. And I went through all the phases. Luckily, I left there before all the crazy bad shit happened that got that place shut down and had their license. Like, I wasn't part of none of that, which thank God. And, but it was so dope when I found I was becoming a bar arcade, and I hit up my man Quills, Kenny Wilson, who was a bartender there at the time, or going to be. I was like, yo, I'd love to fucking DJ there. So I did their soft openings, and I've been there ever since. Every fucking Friday, minus a little bit the last couple of years. And when I go to Ireland to teach, I have someone cover for me, but mostly every Friday religiously. And it's so dope because I fucking play whatever I want. I play whatever I feel like. They told me, when the college kids come and request a little something, little this, or, whatever bullshit pop music, don't play it, do your thing. So I do whatever I feel like. It could be funk and soul breaks, and then I'll go into like old school hip hop, or I'll go into like down tempo beat stuff, or play like some psych rock, weird shit, soundtrack music, whatever it is. So, but that's it. That's like the last thing I'm keeping, because 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing 3 or 4 nights a week at clubs, in various clubs in Eugene, dance party shit. And the music got to be so painful, and playing
like soulless,
bullshit and the same shit over and over. Like, how many times can I play This Is How We Do It without not wanting to fucking poke I hated that fucking song when it came out. I never liked that, because I'm really like
But if it's Friday night, this is how you do it.
That's how you do it, you
Yeah.
know, but I mean, like, I don't know, man. So like, yeah, I'm like on that, but I'm still doing like cuts for people. Like I'll still occasionally do scratches. I do a bunch of cuts for my man Smythe or Spinach out of Portland. He's a former student of mine. He's super dope. So I do cuts for his records, you know.
Yeah.
And we'll do some stuff, you know, if people are going to get out there. Like I never ask for money. It's more like, you know, if you're going to put your record out there, push your record, push your music, and my name will be attached to it. And that's kind of that.
So teaching real quick before we get out of here, I want to ask about this. Teaching study abroad programs over in Dublin, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fucking unbelievable.
I mean, I had the luxury of going to Ireland last September, and it was life changing. Like it's such a beautiful, amazing place, and I felt like I was home. And you know, there was no Donald Trump. So what do you teach over there? I mean, is it just?
Yeah, so I'm real lucky. So the program is a 5-week study abroad program in Dublin, South Dublin, so Dunleary. So it's a little bit 20 minutes south, dart ride of city center. And I teach at the National Film School. Thing about Ireland is super dope, and a lot of other countries, they have a national cinema, right? The U.S. has no national cinema. We just make crap and export it. You know, we make entertainment and export it to the world. There's no culture to it. You know what I'm saying? Right. In America, what is America's culture anyways, right? Like exploitation, colonization, fucking hegemony. I don't even know, right? But Ireland's government you know, funds filmmakers. Like they give actual tax dollars, and Ireland has one of the highest theater going like per capita, you know, in the world. So there's a real dope film culture there. So I teach at the Irish film, like the National Film School, which is so dope. They have a National Film School, and I teach Irish cinema, right? So an American dude, and I rotate with another faculty member, and I teach an Irish like identity and cinema class, right, as an American guy. And then we have an Irish filmmaker or filmmakers who teach filmmaking or screenwriting. So they get to learn the actual production stuff from, you know, people from Ireland, but they learn about the Irish film from the American dude, right? And the first time that I did it, I had no experience. I had no real knowledge. I'm like not an Irish film scholar, you know. I didn't really know what to do, and I didn't have a great background in it. I kind of filled in an emergency situation, but I fucking loved it, man. And I learned myself up. I knowledged myself up, you know, enough to where I could do what I needed to do. And it was so dope, you know, and it's so cool to see how like a cultural identity, a cultural history is reflected in a country's cinema. And one of the dopest things that we do every time we go is we go to the Galway Film Fleadh. And did you go to Galway?
I think we drove through.
Oh my fucking God. We're going to go back. You go to Galway. It's the funnest fucking town in Ireland. They have the Film Fleadh, which is like a big film festival. And it's all like the up and coming features and indies and all this stuff. And dude, you go and like Neil Jordan, the director Neil Jordan's there. I was watching a short that the Gleasons did, Brendan and Dom Hill and whatever. And I look over and those motherfuckers are 2 seats over from me, you know? So when we go out, I get all these like selfies with Brendan Gleeson and stuff like that. And then they all go out for drinks. And it's like, dude, like, it's crazy. Like I saw Dom Hill on the fucking Dart, you know, at like 10 o'clock at night riding the fucking train, you know? It's just kind of nuts there because it's like you don't have that here.
No, it's just a magic place. It's just magic. Yeah, I didn't even because I don't drink, so like I didn't even experience that part of it. And that's, you know, that's a huge part of the culture. But also, I mean, people are just so kind, you know.
Yeah, well, that's sort of like the stereotype of Irish people. Like they're going to be, you know, I think they're kind in like their own way, just like, but like the idea of like Irish kindness is kind of like a, you know,
it was something that I felt good about because it wasn't like people were blowing smoke up your ass. It was, you know what I'm saying? Like it was just this charm. I mean, everyone, no matter what, it's like, what can I get for you? And then you say, they're like, lovely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
No,
didn't matter.
I mean that was the best part is just kind of like you're there for so long, you integrate with the people. The students live with families.
Yeah, 5 weeks would be incredible.
And we go on all these like we go to film studios, we go to cultural like historical sites, we go to the Kilmainham jail, like all these things that have been in films, you know what I'm saying, like that have been in movies. So and then we go on hikes and all this stuff with the weekends off. I mean,
Nice.
it's I
And
call
there's
it
so much to
I call
explore.
it a teachcation. I teach 3 days a week.
Sure.
And we watch and talk about films, and then we do stuff. And we go swim in the Irish Sea with I'm a little bit different. Like I'll go, like I'm more like out and about with the students doing stuff. Went to the pitch at Croke Park to see some Gaelic football and hurling matches. Yo, if you can ever check out hurling,
I wanted to.
One of the fucking coolest fucking games.
It was.
Man.
They weren't allowing fans at the when we were there for any sports. So because of COVID, but we'll be going back.
The dopest part about the leagues is that the leagues that play at Croke Park, each of the 16 counties has I forget what they call the women's hurling sport. It's a little bit different of a name, but it's the same sport. And the Gaelic football. These are all like your fucking phys ed teacher, person who works at the hardware store, who practice, and they come out, on the weekends, and people come from their counties to support these like unpaid athletes. And then everybody who works there volunteers. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so fucking dope, And the British, when they colonized Ireland, they banned Gaelic and they banned Irish identity sports. So they banned Gaelic football and they banned hurling, amongst many other things. So it's just so dope, just to kind of get over there and just kind of like feel all that out. And man, Ireland has a very sad history, right?
Sure.
Of colonization, of death, plague, all that stuff. But like, then again, like the spirit of the people and the people who celebrate that sort of kind of sad history, but in a kind of a beautiful way, is really amazing. Really,
it's about
amazing
perseverance
experience.
And being a survivor and just not letting that shit, get the best of you. Like it can take you down, but.
And if you're an American, it's one of the easiest places to go, right? Because like everybody speaks English, although it's sometimes hard to understand. All the street signs are in English. They're English and Gaelic. Unless you go to Northern Ireland, it's a little bit different, a little more British, there. But so it's an easy place to get around for the students, right? Because like some students have never been out of the country, never been, whatever, and they go and like they don't know what the food is, they don't know what the fucking how to get anywhere, So I mean, it's kind of cool to go to a place like that. It's a nice,
it's digestible for sure.
It's totally digestible.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful place.
The blood sausage.
Beautiful place. And you float in that sea, man. It's so salty that you're so buoyant. The snot green sea. It's just so so cool.
It's pretty great. Well, André Sirois.
Woo.
And I wanted to I want to thank you for coming on and doing this. I picked a song that we were going to play, and I got to be honest with you. I picked it based on the name alone.
Okay.
I knew that we were going to close talking about Ireland and that kind of stuff. And so, I'm going to end it with the song. André, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
I'm going to end this with the song.
The dope part about the song you're going to play, if it's the one that I think you're